Hello, let's get into circles and triangles. Circles exist everywhere in our world. It is the shape of the functional things we use, like wheels under our cars and bicycles, balls in sports, and pools. Area is the shape inside. The formula for area of a circle is A equals pi r squared. Remember to use pi equals 3.14 for your calculations. Circumference is the distance around. You can use the circumference with the radius or the diameter. The formulas are C equals 2 times pi times r, or just C equals pi times d. Let's see how this works. Read the problem. Pause the video to give you time to solve it on your own. Resume the video when ready to check your answer. So we're being asked to find the circumference of the Earth. What were we given? Just the diameter. Remember the formula? C equals pi times diameter. So I'm going to plug in my number. So there's one possible answer if your multiple choice options have a pi included, or we'll have to use 3.14 for pi and get this actual calculation. Let's move on. Read the problem. Understand what you're being asked to find, which formula should you use, and do you have enough information to solve this? As you know, I'm very visual, so I'm going to put the diameters on all of my pizza rings. 8, 10, and 12. What is the circumference of each size of pizza? Well, since we were given diameters, it's probably best to use the circumference equals pi times d formula. If I plug in my numbers, for the small pizza, I'll get 8 pi inches. If I use 3.14 to finish multiplying that out, I'll get 25.12. For the medium pizza, it's just 10 pi. Multiply it out. And for the large pizza, it's 12 pi. Multiply it out, and you're done. Not bad. Here's the same problem again, but this time we're being asked to find the area of each size of pizza. Area only has one formula, A equals pi r squared. Again, it's as simple as plugging in your radius and multiplying times 3.14 for pi. But we were given the diameters for these problems. So how do you find radius? Well, radius is half of the diameter. So for the small pizza, 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 4 squared is 16 pi. If I use 3.14 to finish multiplying it out, this will be the area of my small pizza. For the medium pizza, 10 is the diameter, divided by 2 will give me 5. 5 squared is 25 pi. Multiply it out, there's your area for your medium pizza. And for the large, diameter is 12, divided by 2 gives you 6. 6 squared is 36 pi. Multiply it out, and there's your area for your large pizza. Let's move on. Joey is very hungry, and he says he wants to eat a 100 square inch area of pizza. So which size pizza should he order, and why? You may have to look at your notes from the previous slide. What would you guess? Joey could order either the one large pizza because its area is at least 100 square inches, or he can do one small plus 1 medium pizza because their combined area is at least 120 square inches. Read the problem. Pause the video if needed. Resume when you're ready to check. Here we're being asked to find the radius and the circumference of this wheel. Remember, to find radius, you take the diameter and divide it by 2. Our diameter is 21. 21 divided by 2 is 10.5. Okay. Circumference. You can do this two different ways. You can either use the circumference formula with the radius or the circumference formula with the diameter. I'm going to stick to the diameter because that's what we were given originally. C equals pi times 21, and when I work it out, it's 21 pi or 65.94 inches. Let's move on. We're at the Ferris wheel and it has a radius of 65 feet. What's the circumference? Again, it would be best to use the formula best suited for the information you were given. So we're going to use C equals 2 pi r. Plug in your values. 2 times 65 is 130 pi. If I continue to finish working out my calculations, we get 408.2 feet. This looks fun. So it's summer. We got a lawn sprinkler out and it covers an area of 625 square feet. What's the radius of the circle covered by the lawn sprinkler? Okay. Well, you were already given area, so let's use that formula. Let's plug in what we know. We know the area is 625, and whenever we have a variable left, we just have to isolate. So I'm going to divide both sides by pi, which cancels it out over here, and I'm left with 625 divided by 3.14, which I'm actually going to work out, and that gives me 199 equals r squared. But to calculate r, we need to find the square root. Wait a minute, we can't use a calculator on this test. What do? Well, think of a number line. And above each of these numbers that I've selected, I'm going to put the square root of each one. Square root of 169 is 13. Square root of 196 is 14. And the square root of 225 is 15. Where would square root of 199 fall at? If you guess somewhere near square root of 196, you'd be correct. That means the radius of the circle covered by the lawn sprinkler is about 14 feet. Same problem. If Andrew is standing 30 feet away from the sprinkler, will he get wet? Well, he's outside the circle. I would assume he won't get wet. He's far beyond the area that the sprinkler covers. If he was anywhere between 0 and 14 feet, definitely he was going to get wet. For any triangle, the sum of the three angles equal to 180 degrees. Sometimes you will be given one or two angles and asked to find the third. There are also special triangles with specific properties. Here they are. Please pause the video if you need more time to write down your notes. Resume the video when ready. You can dilate or change the size of a triangle by multiplying each side by some ratio. A whole number will increase the size and a fraction will decrease the size. The lengths of corresponding sides between two triangles are in proportion to each other, and a proportion is two equal fractions. So let's see if we can figure out the missing side here. The first method we're going to use is cross multiply. This is where we set up a proportion, and you can set this up one of two ways. I usually take my first fraction is the numbers from my first triangle to the left, and the numbers from my second triangle make up my second fraction. So as you can see, I have 7 over 4, and they match the same positions as 35 over the question mark, the one that I'm missing. Or you can also set it up sideways this way. Either way, when you cross multiply, notice that the same two numbers I must multiply first are across from each other. So I will multiply 4 times 35, which gives me 140, divide by the remaining number, which is 7 in this case, and that equals 20. Another method you can use is just calculate the ratio. From the start, I could already see a relationship between the 7 and the 35. If you divide the second triangle length divided by the first triangle length, and these are numbers that you already know, so 35 divided by 7 equals 5. If I multiply the 4 on the bottom to match the green on the bottom, 4 times 5 is 20. Therefore, the second triangle is 5 times larger than the first triangle. But either way, I know my missing side is 20 in both cases. Here we asked to find two missing sides from the second triangle. Depending on which side you want to find first determines which numbers we use for a proportion. Let's start with the top one. Okay, let's see if we can figure this out. Remember, there are two ways to set up a proportion from before. Pick one way and stick with it. I prefer cross multiply with the first triangle numbers being my first fraction and the second triangle being my second fraction. So I took 15, which is between 97 and 46, over 21, 46 and 37. Which sides match the 15 on the other triangle? Well, since the 15 is between 46 and 97, that means the 20 matches between 46 and 97. And then to match my question mark, that's between 37 and 46, which matches up with the 21. So let's cross multiply. Multiply 21 times 20, which gives you 420. Divide by the remaining number, which is 15, which equals 28. Remember, you can also try to calculate the ratio if you can. Divide the second number length by the first number length, which is 20 and 15 in this case. 1.33. That's a rational number. But it still tells you that the second triangle is 1.33 times larger than the first. In reality, if my ratio is not a whole number or a decimal that ends with 0.5, I wouldn't use this method to finish solving. I would stick to the cross multiplying proportions. Let's try to find the other missing side. How would you set up the proportion? Pause the video to try to figure it out. Resume when you're ready. Cross multiply method. Did you get the setup right? Remember, you can also do 15 over 20 and 18 over question mark. That would still be correct too. but this is my preferred way. I'm going to cross multiply 18 and the 20, which gives me 360. 360 divided by 15 is 24. Not bad. Let's move on. Long ago, a mathematician named Pythagoras created his own theorem, which is used to find the missing length side of right triangles only. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. It's a famous formula. A and B are the legs of the right triangle, and C, also referred to as the hypotenuse or the diagonal side of the triangle. Below, I have listed the perfect squares and their square roots from 1 through 20. It would help you out immensely on the test if you could memorize these. Let's see them in action. Do you remember the Pythagorean Theorem formula? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Let's plug in the values that we were given. So we have a 3 and a 4, and the C is on the slant or the diagonal. Therefore, 3 and 4 are our legs, and C is our hypotenuse. So I'm going to plug in 3 and 4 in the A and B spots. In this case, we're missing the C. The smaller of the two numbers is A and the other is B. This would still work if you reverse them, but I just like to keep the same thing all the time. 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. Add them together, you get 25. What's the square root of 25 again? Ah, yes. So the hypotenuse is 5. Again, you need the Pythagorean Theorem formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Well, let's plug in the values that we were given. We have an 8 and we have a 10. Which is which? Well, the 10 is already on the diagonal, so that automatically makes that the C value. 8 can go into either the A or the B spot, your choice. Let's work it out. A squared is 64, 10 squared is 100. We're going to subtract 64 from both sides. And what is the square root of 36? Did you get 6 feet? That's correct. In a previous lesson, we reviewed area of a triangle. Do you remember the formula? Do we have enough information to solve this? So remember, area is the space inside. Area is 1/2 base times the height. Remember, height is vertical, not slanted. So I'm going to plug in my values. 30 is my base. My height is 40. 30 times 40 is 1200, and half of 1200 is 600. That wasn't so hard. This problem looks a little more intimidating than the last, but definitely doable. A good suggestion for complex problems is break it down into smaller problems and tackle one at a time. So what smaller shapes make up our polygon? That's right, 2 triangles and 1 rectangle. How much area does the rectangle cover? Well, area equals length times width. We already have our length and width, which is 8 and 16. So I'm going to plug that in, multiply it out, and I get 128. If we subtract that 128 from our total area, which is 176, we get 48. This 48 represents the combined area of our 2 remaining triangles. So what's the area of one triangle? 48 divided by 2 is 24. Okay. X is the base of that triangle. Can we use the area of a triangle formula to finish this out? Sure. So let's plug in what we know. The area of one triangle is 24, and the height is 8, and X will be B. So I'm going to take half of 8, which is 4, divide both sides by 4, and I get 6, which is our missing X value. Good job! I hope you learned something. Thank you for watching.